Hidden behind steel doors lie the greatest stories the auto world forgot. From factory wars to near-death legends, this is Vaulted Wheels, unlocking the machines that built America.
Okay, I want you to close your eyes for just a second and picture the automotive landscape of the late 1990s, right? If you wanted to go really fast, you bought a low-slung sports car. If you wanted an SUV, well, you bought something heavy, slow, and honestly, a bit clunky. The whole idea of a luxury SUV handling like a legitimate supercar, it didn't just seem impossible, it sounded completely absurd. But here's the crazy part. Someone actually solved this puzzle a full decade before the rest of the industry even caught on. So what if the world's very first super SUV wasn't a Porsche or a Lamborghini? Today, we're totally used to seeing the Urus or the Cayenne dominating the streets. But the actual pioneer of this entire concept, it wasn't some massive German or Italian conglomerate. Nope, it was an absolute monster of an off-road vehicle, dreamed up in a small artisan shed in rural northeast Italy. We're talking about a machine that arrived in the future way, way too early. 3.8 seconds. Just let that sink in. Back in the early 2000s, this obscure, entirely handcrafted luxury SUV could literally rocket from 0 to 100 kilometers per hour in just 3.8 seconds. I mean, that was faster than most poster-worthy supercars of the era. Tarmac, loose gravel, desert sand, it honestly didn't matter. So how on earth did an unknown garage pull this off? And why did they vanish completely? Well, let's unravel the mystery. Section 1. The first super SUV. This whole thing is the story of Giuseppe Fornasari. He was this Italian visionary who saw a massive gap in the market that literally nobody else knew existed. Back in 1999, Fornasari Automobili was officially born in Vicenza, Italy. You see, Giuseppe had spent the early 90s importing and tuning these massively powerful American Corvettes for European GT racing. But, he wanted more. His wild ambition was to build a crossover capable of winning a Grand Prix on a Sunday and then surviving the grueling Dakar rally on Monday. And his plan wasn't mass production. He wanted to craft these highly capable vehicles entirely by hand for a very, very exclusive clientele. Section 2. An engineering masterpiece. Now, to really appreciate why Fornasari is legendary, we absolutely have to look under the skin of their flagship vehicle, the RR600. Guys, these specs read like a Le Mans prototype, not an SUV. They took a carbon fiber and Kevlar body and wrapped it around this bespoke 450-piece molybdenum chrome tubular space frame. Because it was engineered for extreme torsional stiffness, that entire skeleton weighed less than 150 kilograms. This obsessive weight saving meant the whole vehicle sat at around just 1,650 kilos, giving this giant off-roader the power-to-weight ratio of a bona fide supercar. It was basically the perfect marriage of two completely different worlds. On one side, you've got this incredibly intricate, handcrafted Italian artisan chassis, welded together literally tube by tube. And on the other side, the pure, brute force of an American muscle heart. Fornasari took a highly reliable, all-aluminum 6.0-liter GM LS2 V8 and had it specially tuned in the US by an engine specialist to pump out 610 horsepower. So it's Italian finesse meeting unstoppable American brawn. Section 3. The Artisan Trap. So you're probably wondering, if this vehicle was such an undeniable masterpiece, a car that literally predicted today's multi-billion-dollar super SUV market, why isn't Fornasari a household name today? Well, the answer lies in their own uncompromising philosophy. Rare cars for special people. Giuseppe flat-out rejected the cold efficiency of factory robots. Every single vehicle was built to order, featuring hand-beaten aluminum. But here's the catch. This obsession with being a boutique workshop rather than a mass production facility, that became their fatal flaw. When you try to build cars this way, you inevitably run into what we call the impossible math. They were carrying the massive R&D expenses of a major manufacturer, paying for complex homologation, stringent safety testing, and all that custom engineering. But their sales reality? It was tiny. They were producing fewer cars than ultra-niche brands, with absolutely zero global dealer network and zero marketing budget. So they were spending millions to play in the big leagues, but bringing in revenue like a local hometown garage. It just doesn't work. To try and survive, Fornasari desperately attempted to cut costs on later models, using what's called a part-spin strategy. This is where you borrow pre-existing components like headlights or taillights from established supercars to cut down on tooling costs, while still keeping that incredible chassis and engine. But the critics, they were harsh.
They labeled their ambitious RR99 model a part spin special. The brand was just desperately struggling to maintain its elite image while rapidly bleeding cash. Section 4. The tragic crash.
The financial reality of modern car manufacturing is just totally ruthless, and eventually it catches up with every visionary. In 2011, they debuted the RR99, really hoping for a big breakthrough. But by 2015, the walls completely closed in. And in a totally wild twist, completely independent of the cars, a massive banking scandal erupted that would overshadow this entire automotive dream. The speed at which everything fell apart was just staggering. The hammer officially fell on September 9, 2015. The Tribunal of Vicenza officially declared Fornasari Cars bankrupt, and all their assets were ordered to be liquidated. After years and years of struggling to find a sustainable market share, of trying to convince the whole world that a super SUV was actually a brilliant idea, the automotive company officially died. Just a heartbreaking end for a true pioneer. But wait, the story actually doesn't end with a failed car company. There is a massive, shocking twist here. Completely independent to Fornasari Automobili, Giuseppe Fornasari was actually a really prominent figure in the financial sector. He was serving as the president of Banca Etruria. Right at the exact time the car company was failing, this regional bank collapsed, triggering a massive, highly publicized financial scandal all across Italy. And the fallout from this was just devastating. Giuseppe became deeply entangled in these intense legal battles, facing charges of fraudulent bankruptcy related to the bank's failure. This actually resulted in a 5-year prison sentence in 2019, though I should note some of those convictions were later appealed. Still, this incredibly heavy judicial controversy cast a long, dark shadow over the innovative automotive legacy he'd tried so hard to build. The visionary was now inextricably linked to financial ruin. Section 5. The Ghost of Geneva. Now, just when absolutely everyone thought the Fornasari name was buried forever under all this legal and financial rubble, the automotive world got a huge surprise. In 2019, at the Geneva Motor Show, the brand somehow rose from the ashes, but not with a massive SUV. Instead, they brought this, the GG311 GT. This wasn't about conquering the future anymore. This was a deeply emotional return to the past. The car was dedicated to Giuseppe's father, Luigi, nicknamed Gigi, who was a legendary 1950s racer. The 311 actually came from the exact race number on his father's Maserati during the 1956 Mille Miglia. This rolling chassis was just a pure retro-styled masterpiece. I mean, look at it. It featured these breathtaking 1950s Italian GT aesthetics, complete with a Zagato-inspired double-bubble roof. Powered by a 500-horsepower V8, the interior was honestly a stark rebellion against our modern, screen-filled digital world. We're talking hand-finished aluminum, hand-stitched leather, and old-world wood. Just pure analog beauty. Today, Fornasari operates more like a ghost. They produce virtually nothing in mass, basically existing as a unicorn for ultra-rich collectors who really value character over conformity. So why does this explainer matter to us right now? It matters because Fornasari walked so that today's auto giants could run. They proved the super SUV was totally possible, paving the exact path that Lamborghini and Porsche are walking right now. They predicted the future, they built it with their bare hands, and sadly, they were crushed by the weight of their own ambition. Which leaves us with one final, really lingering thought to chew on. What happens to the pioneers who arrive at the future too early? Sometimes being the absolute first to innovate doesn't mean you win the race. Sometimes it just means you map the territory only for others to swoop in and claim the prize. Thanks for joining me on this explainer. I really hope it changes how you look at the next super SUV that roars past you on the street.